Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffee Brewing Tips. And in this episode, we are going to talk all about the different brewers. Which one's right for me? I don't know. Okay, so one of the questions I probably get more frequently than questions about espresso, and we're not going to talk anything about espresso because I feel that espresso is such a complicated beast. It is just so different from what we're doing here that this deserves its own talk. So we are just going to talk about brewing black coffee and what are the differences between the brewers, which brewer is right for you, and how do you make that choice? So let's start with the difference between a full immersion brew, which would be the French press and the AeroPress, versus a filter or drip brew, which we would do with like a Chemex or V60. Now, these aren't all the brewers. These are just some of them, probably the most popular ones. There's a Kalita. There are other variations to the V60 or pour over that have different shapes like the Kalita. Some have more of a square flat bottom shape, but these will kind of cover the gamut. So let's talk about the biggest difference between a full immersion brew and a drip brew. So with a full immersion brew, we are adding the beans into our brewing device and all of the water. And so all of the water and all of the grounds are in contact the entire time. Okay, so that's where we get full immersion in the French press, and we get full immersion in the AeroPress because we add all of the grounds and all of the water and it brews together. Where with the Chemex and V60, we are slowly adding our water. And if you haven't yet, check out my 1 to 5 brewing method or the 15 brewing method. I'll post a link here so you can go check that out. That will kind of tell you how to really, I think it's one of the more funner ways to brew coffee with a V60. It allows you to really kind of control the flavor of the coffee without getting into a full immersion brew. So with drip, we're basically adding the grounds and then slowly adding the water, and the water is just only staying in contact with the grounds for a very minimal amount of time before being dispensed into our cup in the bottom. So why are these so different, and why do we have different flavor profiles, and which one's right for me? So let's start with the basic, which is the French press. If you are new to coffee, this is probably a really great, inexpensive way to get into brewing your own coffee. I personally love the French press. Especially, there's something about when I'm traveling, like when I'm on vacation or when I'm camping, there's something about the flavor profile that a French press gives me that I just can't get from a Chemex or V60 in the pour over. There's just some experience about it that I really enjoy. Yeah, I think it creates a great flavor profile. So what's interesting is if we notice the filter here, it is basically just a wire filter. So why is that important? So what happens is that we have the benefits of a full immersion brew. So when we grind coffee, our biggest challenge is getting the grounds to be as consistent as possible in size, right? So we want all of the grounds to be as consistent in size as possible so that we get an even extraction. Unfortunately, roasted coffee has the similar consistency as wood. So imagine when you run wood through a wood chipper, there's really, really small fragments, there's really, really big fragments, and kind of everything in between. So when you're buying a grinder, the thing is that grinder's job is to try to get, when it grinds that wood, it's trying to get those sizes as even as possible. The reason that that's important is because of our extraction rate differences. So we will have some grounds that are that are the ones that are really small will extract really fast, right? We can get into the heart and center of that ground really fast. Where when we have grounds that are larger, it takes the water longer to penetrate into that ground to really extract the flavor out of the middle of that ground. So With full immersion brew, because we're adding all of the grounds and all of the water at one time, it allows us to get into the center of all those grinds. So I think it was James Hoffman, amazing coffee guy, and also has a great YouTube coffee channel. So if you're interested in kind of more of the professional barista side, he also does some consumer stuff, but from more of a professional, if you own a cafe kind of perspective, great channel. So check out James Hoffman, great channel. But I think it was his brewing method that I like to follow for the French press, where essentially you brew the coffee, and I'll do a separate video on this, but brew the coffee and then you let it sit and then you let the ground settle and then you slowly pour it out so you don't get that mucky bottom. But if you noticed, the reason I pointed that out is the mucky bottom. So we have all of the fines, those really fine bits of coffee, coming through the filter and into the cup. So that also means that we're getting all of the oils in coffee. So coffee also has oils. So we're also getting the oils are coming through the cup. So when you drink a French press, what happens is when you drink that coffee, the oil coats your tongue first. So the oils of the coffee kind of coat your tongue. And then it kind of mutes the acidity or the sweetness, prevents a sour kind of tasting coffee. Although, quick note on that, I mean, you can get really sour espressos. And a espresso shot is kind of like a French press in that it's just a wire mesh screen in some degree. That's not entirely true, so please don't hammer me in the comments. But we get all the fines and all the oil through, and you can have very sour espresso. So essentially we are getting more of the oil and more of the fines in the coffee, and by having more oil, it presents the experience of more body in the coffee. It kind of appears thicker. It appears, I don't know how to describe it, just more body is kind of the term we would use. And that's because it can all come through the filter. So if we go to the complete opposite spectrum of that, we have a Chemex. And what's unique about the Chemex is that it's this paper filter. So we have the brewing vessel, which mine's really dirty. I kind of need to clean this guy up. But you'll notice that it's single walled on this side, and then triple walled. So we have 1, 2, 3 on the other side. So we're triple filtering one half and single wall the other side. And even the single wall, the paper is really thick. Like if we can kind of compare these two papers, the Chemex paper is far thicker than like even this V60 paper. And I have these brown V60 papers. I probably would recommend the white ones. I feel that you don't have to rinse them as long and you don't get as much of a paper taste, but that's a video for another time. So I would recommend, so with the Chemex, we have triple walled on one side and single walled on the other. So all of those oils that we brew are getting trapped and are getting caught in the filter. And all of those fines and all the muck that we see from a French press, that's all getting filtered out to a very, very high degree. So for a lot of people that are new to specialty coffee and starting to experience more in specialty coffee, they always say, oh, you know, what brewer should I get? Generally, I recommend a Chemex, because a lot of times when you start getting coffee, you want to brew coffee for your friends and your family. And most people, if you're not into specialty coffee, have never had the super clean, complicated, almost tea-like coffee that you get from a Chemex. And that's because it filters out so much of the oil and the grinds, that the cup is so clean that it just creates this experience like nothing you've ever had if you've never really opened your eyes to specialty coffee. So that's the gamut, right? So we have all of the oils and the fines and kind of all that muck that we get from French press. And again, I say muck, and that's almost kind of a bad thing, but not necessarily. Because it imparts and it gives a different experience. It gives a different flavor in that body. For me, I really enjoy it. So you basically have all that, the oils and all the body that you get with the French press. And then as we climb the scale, we get up to the Chemex, which which takes out all the oil, all the fines, all the muck, and creates a really, really clean cup. Almost tea-like. It's kind of the best way I could describe it. So what about the ones in between? So we'll come to the AeroPress last because it's a very unique brewer. So we'll go to V60. V60 is like Chemex in that it will create a cleaner cup. However, since it's a thinner walled paper, it's going to trap more, not as much oil, and it should catch most of the fines. But some oils and stuff will come through, so it's not quite as clean as we get with a Chemex. But it still gives you that paper filtered coffee flavor where it's a cleaner cup, not as much body. But you can still get it, depending upon the coffee, you can still get a decent bodied coffee, because this will allow some oils to come through where the Chemex is, in my opinion, is going to take out pretty much most of them. I don't have a tool to actually measure the amount of oil, so I'm not sure what the ratio is, and I haven't seen any like papers or articles written on that. Interesting question, but yeah. So this will create something similar to a Chemex, but a little bit lighter, so it still gives us a little bit more body compared to what we would get with a Chemex. So the last one is the French press. Or not the French press, the AeroPress. So the AeroPress is unique in that it brews like a French press. So especially if you put this guy, depending upon how you like, there's so many different brewing methods that you can do with this. It's kind of really fun, but you put your coffee in here, you add your water. So we're brewing, if we're doing the inverted method, which is like this, we're brewing just like we would with a French press, right? All the water and all the grounds, except for the difference is that instead of a wire mesh filter, we now have a thin single-walled paper filter. However, when you put this guy in, you'll notice that, see if I can get it close enough. See those little like holes on the side there? What I have noticed is that as you are brewing, you will get some bleed of the French press style coffee coming through those little holes and into your cup. And so you kind of get this mixture again of French press, but then a cleaner like V60 style cup. So it's unique because you have a full immersion brew, so you get all the benefits of a full immersion brew, but then you can kind of get the cleanness that you would get in the lighter body and more complexity. I think the things that come out in a paper filter, from a paper filter brew in the AeroPress. And what's interesting is the guy who created this really isn't, I don't think he's really, the videos I've seen, he's not really that into specialty coffee, and it seems that he actually was looking for a way to kind of make espresso without an espresso machine is kind of what I gather. Again, it's complete conjecture, but it's just kind of my thoughts. But yet this thing, I mean, there are AeroPress World Championships. I mean, there are entire competitions based on how you brew with this guy. Just because it's a very unique vessel and just really a lot of neat things you can do. So when people always ask me, what brewer should I get? Again, I think it comes down to your personal preference. What do you like? And if you're new to let me back up. I would say if you're new to specialty coffee and you're really enjoying the process of making and brewing coffee, Chemex. You can pick this up at most, even like Bed Bath & Beyond. I think they're a national chain. So if you're in the US, you can pick this up at like one of those big kind of kitchen stores. Sur La Table and those other like unique ones. And of course, Amazon will toot it to you, I'm sure. But the Chemex, just because the cup quality you get is so unique, when you go to a good local roaster, and today I'm wearing an Iconic Coffee Roasters t-shirt from Santa Fe, so say you went to Iconic and you picked up a good coffee, especially a coffee that's going to be sweeter and brighter, something like a really good Colombian that's really floral, or maybe an African that's really stone fruit sweet, or a natural Ethiopian that's got kind of that berry sweetness. Any one of those coffees through here is going to be pretty amazing, and it's going to create an experience like nothing you've ever had. And so generally I say, you know what, if you're into getting a special coffee, get a Chemex. It's a lot of fun. It really opens up your eyes to what coffee can be. Doesn't have to be, but what it can be. And so I think this is really a great option if you're just starting. If you're new to specialty coffee, I would start here. And also because you will kind of knock your friend's socks off when you brew them coffee out of this and they taste it. Have never had anything like it. However, for me, I personally love the simplicity of a French press. I love the body of a French press. It's because I also like espresso as well. So for me, I love the body, I love the simplicity, the ease. I have a backpacking French press that I can pack into a bag if I'm traveling, if I'm going somewhere that I know doesn't have really good coffee. I have my little coffee travel bag. I'll do another video on that so you can see how I travel when I know I'm going somewhere that it's not going to have any good coffee close and I still want to enjoy coffee. So the simplicity of French press, the flavor profile, there's just something kind of romantic about a French press. It's been around forever. It is a great brewing method and really does a great coffee. And then if you really, if you kind of then, and then of course there's the other two options, V60 and AeroPress. I don't really use either one of those more frequently than the other. I don't necessarily love one or the other. Yeah, they're kind of okay, but for me, I guess I like the extremes, either French press or Chemex. So really heavy body coffee with a super, super clean cup. So that's it for today. If you like the content of this video, please click the subscribe button and click the little notification bell so you get notified every time there's a new video. It just helps me so that I know that you're enjoying the content, and I'll kind of keep creating more content for you and help you make better coffee at home. So again, as always, coffee, pedal, repeat.